the ANC celebrated its 110 years of existence at the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane. During this year's January 8th statement, President Cyril Ramaphosa called on members to be disciplined and respect each other and end corruption. Professor Mcebisi Ndletyana, a political analyst from the University of Johannesburg, joins us now to unpack what came out from the January 8th statement. Prof. Ndletyana, thank you for your time. The January 8th statement of the ANC has its history all the way back to the 1970s, 1972. It's considered to be umkhombandlela. Basically, it's a trailblazer. It points the way forward. After that, there should be no confusion amongst the ANC's members and society in general as to what the ANC's priorities are for the year ahead. Having listened to it on the weekend, are you left with that impression? Are you clear? Has the way forward been paved and illuminated for you sufficiently as a member of society?
Yes, as a member of society, it's quite clear. I hope it is just as clear for ANC members as well. And that has been the challenge, in that you have guidelines and clear messages issued by ANC leaders. You have repeated resolutions that are continuously harped upon throughout the course of the year. But the problem, of course, Tulas, with the ANC is that most of the time, they don't abide by what they claim, by their resolution. Their behavior most of the time tends to be self-serving. You have people who claim to be radicals who are issuing incomprehensible statements, pretending that they are not part of the ANC. So you have this posturing that tends to cloud issues, and ultimately you end up having an ANC that is inwardly looking, continuing with irrelevant debates. So that's always the concern, staying the course. They start off saying all these things, but throughout the year, you have derailment of sorts. Completely uninteresting and stupid debates become core part of ANC debates. And I fear that this year, especially because you have the conference coming up, you will have all sorts of meaningless debates, charlatans pretending to be intellectuals and all that.
And did you see some elements of that, Prof. Ndletyana? And the reason I ask you is that, in fairness, if you read the January 8th statement of the ANC, it does touch on all the key issues: the state of our economy, the fight against corruption, how the Zondo Commission should be received, and, action going forward to stamp out corruption, gender-based violence, etc., in as far as running the state is concerned. But if you look at the reportage coming out of that and the debates that then come out among ANC members, they are partly about that, but they are largely about things such as Stan Mathabata, for example, saying that President Ramaphosa should get a second term, and the whole issue of, the ANC should deal with people who are ill-disciplined, and there can be no voices that speak against the structures, decisions of higher structures. So your sense of that balance between state priorities of a governing party and a party that is so self-absorbed in a year of a conference?
Well, so far, from Stan Mathabata's statement, he seems to be saying that he is supporting Cyril Ramaphosa because of his dedication and determination to fight corruption, his exemplary leadership, and resolve to affirm ethical leadership. And the important thing here is to discuss leadership in the context of the current crisis and what you then require to lead the ANC, to lead society towards a different future. So it should not be about personalities. It must be about who best possesses the kind of characters that are required to take South Africa into a different level. And so I'm not extremely worried about what Stan said, because that debate, it's a contextual debate about the requirements of leadership. And then for me, that what impressed me most about that speech is the clarity and determination to see through the Zondo Commission recommendations, to stamp out corruption. So that part was most impressive. But of course, with the ANC, there would be tentativeness here and there, especially within the ANC, when the party has to pronounce itself on the prosecution of certain individuals, them having to step down. So you get this dance, whether or not people should step down and all that. That will continue to happen. But the test will come in the ANC supporting the state to prosecute. I don't think the ANC will ever be unanimously behind anti-corruption, because probably half of them, if not more, are implicated in corruption. Most of their members believe that the state is a source of livelihood for them. So that belief is well ingrained in the ANC. The ANC is a deeply corrupt party. That much is clear. But you need then to help it recover, to redeem itself. You need the state to act quite harshly to get this into their heads, that crime does not pay. For now, they are happy just voting for leaders who are ethically compromised, because those leaders will in turn give them something. I'm talking at regional levels, you know. Yeah. And when we look at the ANC, to lastly on this one, we must look at the ANC at a lower level, because the ANC is an embodiment of multiple structures, and what you see at a national level is a reflection of the rot at a lower level. So if you want national to change, you have to look at what happens at a lower level.
The body is made up of the cells and tissues that make it up. Lastly, Prof. Ndletyana, I don't know what your sense was. I got a sense that there was a conversation that was being had without being had over the last few days of the build-up to the January 8 event, but also, even at the point at which it was happening, the speech was happening. And it's a conversation about national security, about whether or not we have what some in the ANC are, decidedly terming a counter-revolution, if there's anything like that. When the power went out during that gala dinner incident, and President Ramaphosa's security moved to sort of shield him in a way. You heard his comments there. There's nothing dangerous here. We're talking here in the context where we've had the events that we had in July last year, in the context of the recent incidents that we've been seeing. Did you get the same sense that there's a security conversation that is being had without being heard?
Well, in fact, to us, that has been the one most glaring failure of Cyril's presidency, not paying attention to the things that most matter. He inherited a presidency that was always suspicious on security and intelligence matters, which had previously been abused by his predecessor. And there was suspicion that it contains elements that are resistant to his presidency. So, common sense says that if you have that kind of legacy inheritance, you deal with those matters, intelligence, because intelligence provides information for the president to be able to act. And he didn't follow that closely. Ayanda Georgia was apparently not entirely one of the closest person to him, and he didn't insist on regular reports or whatever, because obviously now we know that the president didn't know or didn't get any reports on the July unrest thing. And the president himself chairs this committee, Security Council Committee, apparently. So what was the president discussing in these committees? Why couldn't he ensure that his ministers work together, they provide and share information amongst each other? So he's just as culpable. This idea of blaming this thing on Nosville Ngakula or Ayanda Jaja, it's not entirely fair. It's the president controls and coordinates cabinet. He must make sure he has an eyes-bird view of the critical things. So he must look at the critical things and ensure that the ministers are doing what they ought to do, And so I'm a little bit concerned that in light of the discussions, serious discussions that we had immediately after July uprising, and even today we still have a bit of uncertainty on whether or not there's anything being done in this front. And of course, apparently high officials, DGs or whoever, have not been appointed in the intelligence ministry. So, this is an unacceptable incompetence. It's unforgivable. Yeah. That in a country where clearly you have counter-revolutionary elements of sorts, you would not beef up the very instrument that will enable you to take firm action. It's completely unforgivable.